Advisory Committee for Templeton to order for 5 September 2019. Can stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. So approval of last meeting minutes. Since I know two of you weren't here, can we do a 3-3? Don't we need to have at least 4 to?
No, you don't.
Okay.
Not for the meeting minutes,
Did,
we have 5.
Oh, we have 5, so you can abstain, and that's considered the same thing. Okay, everybody get a chance to look at the meeting minutes? I made one small change to Lee. It was on the vote of the last meeting minutes where I had abstained and he had me voting yes. And he sent out new ones.
Yes, he's got it. Right, yeah.
Yeah.
The only thing I noticed, and I didn't even see it on the first one, but on the second version, I forget which item it is, and I don't have it up here right now, but where it says something about the school choice, and it says was equal to 10%. I believe we said 10,000, which was the remainder. The difference between the 5,000 from school choice and the 15,000. I think that's what we were talking about, and I think it was written as 10%.
Okay, so if you want, we can send that to Lee, and then let me see where we were. Oh yeah. Well, let me just read the context real quick. The superintendent previously said to do 10%, but what we currently, right, that's true.
Excuse me, sorry.
No, 10%'s right. Percentage is right. They were talking about how much over they are, not money, but number of students.
Further down, I think, Tony.
I'm looking at, let's see. I see was where they're having, it was stated the school superintendent, is that what you're talking?
I'll
I mean, if you want, we can hold off if you think that we can wait and.
It's inconsequential, really.
I mean, the way I read it, that's right, but I might be looking at something different. So if you're okay, if you're not okay, then.
It's down in the column that starts with whether having open-ended school choice. It's in the very last
right,
line.
Yeah. District students multiplied out by the 10% overage essentially equals the budget overage. It reads funny, the 10% is right.
Well, that's the district students
I see what
multiplied by, it should be 10,000.
Yeah, you know what, you're right. Okay, so why don't we defer the meeting minutes, and then I'll send Lee a note to change that to 10,000. Okay?
Yep.
Yeah, fine.
I deferred to
Do you
next
need
meeting.
a motion to table? it'd probably be
I
more
think we
appropriate.
do. We do need a motion to.
I'll make a motion to table the minutes for August 31st till next meeting.
We have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Actually, Debbie, what we'll do is when you send the minutes out for this, we'll just make sure Lee sees that bottom 10% needs to change to $10,000. Where's my agenda?
Just gonna highlight it.
Lost my place. Hold on. Just gotta find my, there we go. All right, budget versus actual. So we deferred this since you two weren't here, I know, Will, you had some comments that you wanted to make. I was hoping that you were gonna send them to us, and then we would've discussed them,
Well, I
but-
made comments that there were things that I saw that I figured the committee members would pick up on and question.
I mean, I did notice some that were underspent by quite a bit, but what I intend to do once Kelly is able to get us the 4 years, I wanna build the spreadsheet and then, but I'd also like to.
Oh, I have the 4 years.
Okay, so do you have it like in a document, or,
I got all the documents.
no, but I mean, you didn't create a document?
No, no.
Okay.
All the
Once he
BVAs,
has 4 years, I'll make an Excel sheet for you and send it to you with all
Okay.
the 4 years that you can adjust how you like.
Okay, if you have, we'll talk about it after.
okay.
So, yeah, right, and again, I say it every week, but without a spend plan, or without the people in front of us, it's kinda hard, okay, how come you did not expend all of your funds? Or, not expend all your funds, but really if there's a big gap of, you know, they only spent, say, 75%, I'd wanna know that. Is there a reason? There may be a plausible reason, but without asking. So if there's specific questions you wanna send, I can send to the TA about specific
No,
accounts.
I have some comments.
Sure, absolutely.
My first one is on the town accountants. Since I was in quality and reliability, I had probability and statistics.
Mhm.
What's the probability of 3 accounts being 100% right to the penny?
Out of how many?
Out of 4 accounts,
Depends on which account you're talking.
right to the pennies, every one of them. I'm talking about the 4 accounts on the town accountant. 3 out of the 4 are 100%. You know what the probability of that is?
I don't even wanna get.
Did you figure it out?
No, I didn't.
It's gotta be down close to
I'm
zero.
not good at statistics, so.
I'm just telling you, I didn't go figure it out, but I already looked at that and went, ain't no freaking way to the penny that you can spend 100%. Take a look at all the rest of the stuff.
Is there possibly a rounding error? or rounding?
I was gonna say, if I might, I do think, and I don't know if this is the reason, but I do know that there was an issue with overspending the accountant's allotment or allocation because of her sick time being out for 5 weeks, and they came in for a transfer based
Right.
on that.
Personnel,
So they-
on the personnel. Okay.
Right, but what they may have done, they can do, if I'm not mistaken, Will, you know this better than me. But can they do interdepartmental transfers within the department? So could she transfer money within the funds
No.
within her unit?
No,
Okay, there you go.
No, and actually, the transfer was from benefits to information technology. It wasn't for the account. She was going to come in
It was
because of that.
in here?
Yeah, the transfer that we had on the 11th of July, we only had one transfer this year. So her original plan was to, request a transfer,
That's, yeah.
and then they never did do it. And I didn't understand why they would do that when, I mean, or, no.
There was
There was a warrant article, wasn't there, that moved that money? In the town, I
There was
think
enough
at the-
money in the account when they came here, and I think Will actually pointed that out at the time.
Let's see if I have both of them in here.
probably that.
Yeah, and, so I think the transfer was backed off, and then they went about it a different way.
I think,
You might be right here.
if I'm not mistaken, no, I don't know why I don't have it all here, but, I have it somewhere. I think we did it at town meeting where we moved the money. They approved it.
5,000 to, town accountant for coverage for med leave.
Right.
It's
That-
right here
that
under
was a-
Article 2.
Right. Oh, that's right. Right, that was in that group of funds, right?
There was, 5,
But that still should only go into one account unless they peanut butter spread it across there, but.
right, but it still doesn't
I
answer the
mean,
question of how to
you'd-
spend it down to zero.
If you'd like to formulate a question, send it to me, I'll be happy to send it to Kelly.
I'm just bringing that out they can show people that the probability of that happening is nil on 3 accounts.
Can't be
On
nil.
one account, I can see it, but all 3 accounts,
If it exists, there's always a probability of it happening, so it can't be nil.
well, very small.
Yes.
When I say nil,
I know what you, I'm just giving you a hard time, Will.
Just be,
I'm just, it's been a long day. So, any other accounts that really kinda,
yeah.
okay?
I looked at back and forth on multiple years, and the thing that stands out, and I did mention this when it came to the 20 budget, about where to make cuts. And I said, why don't we do something about the training? Well, if you look at employee support, every one of those in 19 were underspent, just about,
Okay.
a substantial amount.
Okay.
Not all of them, but there was a substantial amount going through every one of the departments. To me, and oh, by the way, there were some of them that were, the actual amount was changed from one year to the next.
So,
So when you do the 4-year, my suggestion would be to further look at that, okay? I'm bringing it up now so that when we end up looking at this on a bigger scale,
Sure.
because I got to all 4 years oh, by the way, you cannot end up doing all 4 years. Why is that?
I'm not sure.
Because we have an administrator who changed the account numbers along with the accountant to an omnibus type of budget versus a line item budget, which we had up until,
What year did they change that?
I think it's 17. 16, you had more detail. And you have people that are out there, and oh, by the way, I'm one to agree with it, is a line item budget.
Yeah,
Why? And I know what, Mr. Chairman, I know what you've said, that takes time at the meeting. Well, guess what? We used to go through that, and we used to have people say this as we went through it, every line on the budget. And oh, by the way, when the previous administrator we had here, he had an upper level omnibus budget, like a lot of other communities, but what did he have underneath it? He had all the details so you could see every line item. This cutting down on the amount of accounts, to me, is, and continuing, I probably shouldn't say this, but continuing to take and end up having an employee end up getting increases, and the amount that they receive and the amount of work that they have to do as far as keeping the accounts go down, just rubs me the wrong way.
how did we switch over from the line item to the current budget?
It was very easy. He did it. He
Without a
present,
vote?
he presented that at town meeting. The only people that can end up changing it is who?
Isn't it
Okay.
at the
The
meeting?
town, the people in the town can end up changing it.
Changing how they do the.
Right, how they do the
Okay,
budget.
so is it the process of doing the budget or the actual budget itself? Do you know what I mean? Where they only hold it, instead of going, say, 3 layers deep, they only go 2. Does the town have to approve that, or is that within his powers as a town administrator that he feels this is the best way to do the accounting?
Well, the way I read it, it's the
Because
people in
I
the
don't,
community.
I'm not sure the community would get involved in the processes. They get involved in, okay, we.
When you
we're
say
gonna have-
process, the split.
The process of accounting system, like using, say, Quicken versus Vadar. I'm
No,
not saying
no,
they're alike.
yeah.
But it's similar to that. It's
No,
like,
I'm not talking about that. Right within VEDAR. The process of creating account numbers and having them
Right.
for, you used to have an actual line item,
so
say
when
that
he
said,
did that.
that said, town administrator, salary, X,
Oh, okay, I know, okay, so.
okay?
Okay, so you're talking about the fact that when the town report used to have all town employees' salaries were in there and stuff like that.
No. Well, yes, in the budget, yes.
But in the
But in the
budget,
reporting from the treasurer, that's totally different.
Okay.
We can talk about that some other time. Because that should be reported by the treasurer where all the money is spent. And I know one selectman chose not to take it, end up having that reported when they got on. But it's been reported in the past. The people should know where their money's going and who's
to
getting it.
what level though? That's the only question I'm asking. I'm not saying that the way they're doing it is right, the old way was wrong, but to what level?
My only thought on that was, and I hear both of you, and I think let's say if there's any miscommunication or any, thing that's being overlooked or might help the conversation is that I think it's the townspeople that would be the ones that need to make that decision.
Right.
That's all Will's saying is, however it's presented or however it's brought up, it has to be brought to the townspeople to decide how it is presented to them.
So.
Not per line, but
Okay,
as far as the
Do
method.
we have like a statute or something that states that, or something in the
I
bylaws that
believe
state that?
I believe there is a Mass General law that says, who can end up approving the budget process. And I can't remember
Okay.
which one of them.
And the reason I'm going there is because we elect a board of selectmen
Yep.
to basically oversee the budget for the town, really, it's really
Policy.
theirs. Policies, so I just don't think that you bring the nth degree to the town each time.
Well, no,
mean-
and I mean, I'm with you because I have
I'm not
that.
disagreeing with you. by the
I'm
way.
one of the same guys who disagrees that if you brought a line item before the town, I think you'd have two people showing up the next meeting. That's my feeling. But the decision on what level that they would feel comfortable with should be theirs. And if it's one number, or do I choose to give them 10 numbers, or do I choose to give them a number per department?
Well, this is,
Like, so when
you
they
know-
present their budget, like, and I don't wanna, I'll use the town accountant, but I don't wanna pick on Kelly, cause that, I don't do that. But like, for example, the town accountant's budget for personnel should
Yep.
show two people,
right.
okay? You don't even have to have names, there's two people, it should show their salary.
No, it doesn't,
But-
you don't show them.
But for, like, stuff like supplies, I don't think that we should be approving whether they buy 2 boxes of paper
No,
or 4 boxes of paper.
That's not what I'm saying. There used to be
Well, that's
more
a line
account
item.
numbers. Now, I'm not saying that you should break out supplies in 15 line items.
So what items do you want broken out further?
Salary for one,
Okay.
okay? And any major expenses.
Do we see that when they do the
So,
budget?
okay,
Now,
so
why
really
is-
you're getting back to my spend plan. Now, although salaries is a little different, major expenses
Yep.
is something I wanna see.
Let me say this. When he changed it to omnibus and got rid of the level of detail, people didn't get to see that. The year before, they got an omnibus budget, upper level, but they also got the sheet to go to the lower level. So they had the opportunity. The opportunity is very important here when you talk about town meeting. They had the opportunity to take and say, excuse me, let's go to this particular budget and talk about this particular line item is being too much or too little. Okay? And I agree with you to the extent, and Bob, it used to be that when you had the green sheet, you didn't have an omnibus. You had every line item, which is the detail, and we would go through and he would just call out this line, and it was a simple process, a real simple process. If somebody had a question, he would go through the first thing and say, and people out in the audience would say, hold. And you get maybe 3 or 4 line items in that budget that people had hold. Those are the ones that you went back to.
So,
But,
when Carter did this,
yeah,
did anyone ask him why, and did he give an explanation as to why he chose to do it that
yes,
way?
there was a question put, And,
And did he answer it?
I would say the accountant answered it and said, the town voted on it. Not that it was presented, this is how you want it, the town voted on it. So, in their eyes, and the accountant and her, the administrator and her, basically said, since the town voted on it, the omnibus budget is what we're gonna do.
Did the town vote on it?
They voted
Now,
on.
whether they were given all the details
Right.
of what it meant or not is a different question.
Right,
But did the town vote on it?
yes.
And they voted for it?
They voted for the budget. Individual line items on the
Right.
departments,
They voted
they
for the
did not do anything.
But see, that's another problem you have is, when you have all that information out there,
Yep.
I always worry about people questioning certain things in their qualifications to do such. Meaning, and I don't ever mean to pick on people. Let's say the police chief makes X, okay?
Yep.
Someone said, I don't think he should make that. Well, what qualifies you to make that decision? I mean, I think they make what they make because they have the education level, they have the experience to make what they make. In fact, probably, I think nobody would really disagree. We pay them what we can. Most everybody in this town's underpaid for what they do.
I beg to differ with you on that.
Okay, but
Because
just
there
what I
is
see.
people that are in administrative positions, the equal of what we have here in Gardner, getting paid less. I know that for a fact.
But there's probably also other communities where people in the same positions make more. So it's what the town can afford.
Well,
I'm sorry, Debbie, did you wanna?
I do, I have a question, though, going back to what you
Yeah.
were saying. So,
Yeah.
when we went through that whole budget process and they gave us the budget book, is that what you want them to see? Like the breakdown of, like,
Yeah.
here's the chief of police salary,
Yes,
and they
yes.
give us these each individual accounts? So
Yes.
the way that, so that's a whole separate process, right? Which is what we did when we sat here in a joint meeting. We went, like, as an
And I think
advisory
that's-
committee, a board of selectmen, and then each department
Yes.
came in, and
And I
then
think
our
that
job was to question
We
that.
do that on behalf of the town.
Excuse me.
Well, that's a different,
I mean-
that's a different discussion, and I'll talk about that
But-
under old and new business if you want.
Talk about it whenever you want. I mean, I agree. I mean, I thought that we did go over each budget and by line item, and then
We do.
I think Bob's right. I mean, if you wanted to take the budget book and you just look at it, it took us all day one Saturday and like 3 hours on another day. And I think this next time it might take longer because I think some of us have more experience with it now. That Bob's right. Town people aren't going to sit in the town to do that. They're not going to sit in the meeting. They.
No, that's not what I'm advocating, is line by line, going through the budget like that.
What are you advocating? I guess
I'm saying that
confused.
if you have the omnibus budget, and you give the upper level, you also give the detail. So if there is a question on a selectman's budget, they can see the detail and say, hold on that budget, I have a question
The budget
underneath
book's
here.
online. All the information is
I was gonna say,
online.
that is true.
Here's this kicker. It may be online, but it's not correct as a town meeting.
Well,
Because
there are
there's
differences,
changes that
yes.
are made
There
that
are.
people don't get to see.
There are. But honestly, again, now, while we are appointed, I think that's part of our job, if there's something glaring, to point it out at town meeting. I mean, I think that's sort of what we're charged to do. If all of a sudden they change something, and especially if we all don't agree with it, that we bring it up at town meeting and say, look, the advisory committee had a problem with this. You know, because while I think that the Board of Selectmen last time did a great job at taking our inputs, I think they were very accommodating to us and made it more of a partnership, and I hope that's gonna continue. I think people know me by now. If I see something that I don't like and it goes the way I don't like, I have no problem standing up saying something about it.
Well, here's my thoughts on it. I don't have a problem with having a joint meeting with the selectmen. But I think we should be involved September 1st, along with the administrator. And that there's another you get another, agenda item here, I was gonna talk about that underneath there, but if you give me some leeway, I will end up talking about that.
Sure.
My thoughts are this. I won't talk about that agenda item. It's more appropriate for us to have a meeting, like other communities, with the administrator and talk about the actual criteria of the budget. What am I meaning by that? Well, there's certain criteria. You can end up saying 1% less, level fund, 1% more, 2.5% increase. Those are the type of things, and you can end up doing some additional stuff about that concerning the budget. And those are the type of things that other communities actually have a conversation with their administrator.
I think that's a very
Now-
good idea. And
Now, when it comes to town manager, that's a whole different thing. We do not have a town manager, even though at times, my thoughts, as well as some other people, is the selectmen have stepped back and made it more as a town manager than a town administrator.
So
Those are my feelings,
so you're
and
sort
I
of-
see that.
So you are sort of dipping into the next agenda item, which is
Yes.
fine.
Yeah.
And I don't see why when and I was hoping, if we don't set it this week, maybe at the next meeting, even if I'm not here, you guys can set, I was hoping the first week of October, before we get too far down the budget, to
Well, can we
our
talk
first
about
meeting.
that later, because I have some thoughts on that when you get to the next
Well,
one.
do you wanna still, you have more on the budget versus after?
Yeah, I was just-
Oh, okay, alright, sure.
From the
Well,
overall budget, I want to, I can talk about, finish that. You're jumping
Okay.
ahead on me.
No, you're the one that jumped ahead. I was just trying to follow the logical
Well,
sequence of what you were talking about.
it came up. But there are other things under there, which, when you look at the end of the year, they're underspent significantly. Buildings and grounds, it's only half the amount of money. That's a lot of money to leave on the table. I wanna know why. They only spent 12,000 on an allotment of 24. Now, here's my thoughts is, only because I was highly involved in getting this building. A lot of people don't know that. I know a lot about this building and what should be done and what isn't being done. Right now, you have a cupola that is in terrible shape in this building. The last administrator, I had mentioned to him about the fact that we have a template that should go to Monty Tech and have it done by them and replace the ones up there because they're deteriorating. And oh, by the way, that cupola is not just a dressing on this building. It actually has ventilation that comes in. Not everybody knows that, but I do.
Well, that's
I was on the roof a number of times putting tops on this building. We wouldn't have this building if there weren't people that spent some time to put tops on this building to save it. Because we had a hurricane come through, and on the west side, it flipped, the rubber roof flipped over and was leaking water. It actually would have gone into where the selectmen are, okay?
Okay, so obviously,
there
that's a
is-
big question, and hopefully Bob.
There should be more
Bob
money
can answer
spent
that
there
question.
and on different things for this building, like the upgrade of insulation.
Okay, so while I agree with that,
Yep,
okay, that there's probably some things, but maybe what they're saying is, because of our budget, and now you point out the fact that
Yep,
maybe
yep.
there's $12,000 there. They're saying, you know what, the building's good enough for us right now, we have other more pressing items. So I think always when we bring stuff up here, it begets a lot of questions that we would wanna go and ask, okay, you know, the superintendent, or the DPW superintendent, why was your building supplies only half spent?
Yeah.
Maybe there was a project they were gonna do, and he probably has a very plausible reason for it, but we'd have to ask
right.
Bob the question on
Yep,
that,
yep.
building and grounds.
Yep.
You know,
It does.
right, so that's why I say, well, if we knew, you know, I think at the end of the year, what would be nice is if each department wrote an end of the year report of essentially their funds, you know, I have this much, I'm, you know.
Well, what we.
Even just a short one, it's like, hey, I only spent 50% of this because of X.
Okay, let me talk about us, okay? And our budgeting and the money that we have. In our year-end report, and you can argue the point one way or the other. But it says in the bylaw that we're supposed to have an accounting. Well, part of the accounting, if you look back on the past years, other than the last couple, there was an accounting for the money that we had for expenses. Actually laid out as to where the expenses were. Same thing with the emergency reserve. So you have, and by the way, transfers, end of year transfers. We had a listing of everything that we approved for transfers. It hasn't happened in the last couple of years.
It will happen this year.
That's why I said, the documentation that you have end of year transfer and the
Yeah, I have it.
expenditures, the money, you keep those
Yeah.
so you can end up creating a
Exactly.
report.
No, that's why I got the fancy book.
And that's the type of reporting that I think you're talking
Yeah.
about for departments.
Well, I don't wanna know every little thing that they bought or thing, but when there's big gaps in money spent or not spent, I think it's just a quick two-line, we only spent to 50% because of X, Y, and Z. You know, like, for example, their personnel, you know, if they had, an opening for 3 months, that's gonna create a gap in their personnel line.
Yep.
Okay, so there's just so many, and each department's gonna be so different.
Yep.
You know, I believe like with supplies, I think everybody takes a guess. You know, and they never know. Now, if you can extrapolate over 4 years, if they've always underspent by 25%, maybe you reduce that amount by 25%.
That's my thoughts also.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
if
But I
they're
wanna see a trend.
if they're underspending and there's a legitimate reason, that's one
I
thing.
wanna see a trend though.
Right, but if they're underspending because they have too much money, then they don't need that amount of money. During the budget process,
I agree.
you cut back on it. Oh,
So
but-
I agree with that, but
but-
what I'm saying is, 1 year is not a good data point. You need 2 or 3 data points where they've consistently underspent, or maybe 1 year they underspent, then they overspent, then they're close to level funding, and you say, okay, I get it, they're probably okay with what they,
Here's an excellent example of that. In 19, under the assessors, and I'm just picking out one.
Uh-huh.
Supplies. Allocated 725. And they spent 89%, which is a little bit on the low side, but that's not too bad. That's not too bad. That's probably the department head watching the amount of money.
maybe they didn't mail as much stuff out. Cause I would have bet
No,
supplies
no.
for them as stamps is a
The year
big,
before, guess how much they had in there? They allocated $1,000.
Yeah.
And they only spent 70%. So that would, to me, that's a good example.
okay, so, but if you look at that, okay, for 18,
Yep.
then they had 1,000, they only spent 70%, so then this,
Right.
in 19, they were at 700. So to me, they actually looked at what we spent the year before.
That's
We
what
only
I'm saying.
spent 70% of it,
Yeah.
and,
We were in agreement.
okay.
We're
I was
totally
trying
agreement.
to
I
figure
just
out where
point-
you were going with that.
No. I point that out is because if you look at past years or trends, like you said.
That is why I want that information, on the past, from 2016 to, through 19, so we can just look at trends.
Yep.
Right.
And I just bring-
And I'm hoping the
that's-
department heads are doing that, I'm sure they are.
I would think they're probably doing it less than you think because of the ability to do it with the information that they have.
Yeah, you might be right.
You know, because of the, you know, swapping and switching and the changes in management, the changes in direction and, you know, even in the best of circumstances.
I will say this, some of your better department heads are doing it, some of your less than better are not necessarily looking at that.
Well,
Because
okay.
there's an issue, as far as I'm concerned, about where we are on certification of our financial team.
Okay, well,
But that's,
you seem
but
to
that's-
pick on them a lot, and I don't wanna pick on any department,
I said financial team.
I know what you were talking about.
That's more than one.
But I think we have all good department heads. I'm not advocating that we don't.
I didn't say they were bad. I was saying that
Well,
you don't end up doing some of the things as far as raises and stuff when you don't have people that have become certified in a reasonable amount of time. Because the last treasurer collector we had was given 3 years to get certification.
so, I would say this about these type of tests. They're very rigorous tests. Some people are good test takers, some people are not. And from what you used to do, you should know that. Some people just, they're very good at what they do, they just are not a good test taker, so when it comes time for a certification
I'm not
test
gonna
like
address that because I have another opinion on that,
Well,
and I'll hold that to myself.
so, I take that from many years of instruction.
I would just say on that, yeah, if that's the case.
Is,
If that is actually the case.
Right.
If that, we don't know.
is certification a requirement for positions?
Yes.
It's requested, and,
Requested and required are different.
I don't think it's required.
I mean, I understand the need for it, don't get me wrong,
Hmm.
but honestly, as the director really of personnel, then it's really on the TA to say,
Right.
either I'm okay with it or I'm not.
Correct.
Well, wait a second. Who does he report to? The selectmen.
No.
The selectmen should be driving that issue, not us.
Yes,
I'm-
I agree with that.
Yep.
Well, when I say the TA, he doesn't really make a move without the Board of Selectmen. So,
I won't go there.
Before
well,
we.
no, he's given certain amount of latitude. I mean, that's what the administrator does. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, before we get off the BVA, I don't know if any of you have looked, but, at the beginning of this, I sent you, all an email, that lists, 15 accounts that, I checked this year's starting balance against last year's ending balance.
Yep.
And found, variations in all 15. And those are 15 out of the accounts, not the 15 accounts I checked. I checked all the accounts across the board, and those 15 differ. Now, there may be, a couple of them that have, valid reasons. I didn't check them all, I checked a couple, and I couldn't find them, so.
What day did you send that? Oh. You
I just sent it at the beginning of this meeting.
I'm sitting there looking for it.
I was like,
now I
oh,
just see it where it just came in. Okay, thanks. All right,
I just want everybody to have it in front of them, that's all.
thought I was going crazy.
I can't be,
All right. Any other comments on budget versus actuals?
No, I think I stirred up a few questions. I hope I stir up a few
You
questions.
always bring up good points, Will.
I hope so.
Always. Okay, so the date for the workshop with the town administrator,
I have inputs on this.
okay, so what
This is what-
Carter sent me an email, and did I forward that to everybody, what he
No.
sent me? Okay, let me find it, and I'll tell you exactly.
While you're looking for it, can I speak?
Sure.
To have him come in and tell us about, like, overlay and some of the other stuff,
Yeah.
that's a job of the Association of Town Finances come. And there's also documentation out there. I think it's more appropriate to have him come in and, like I said earlier, to talk about the criteria for the budget. And have a meeting with him. Other communities do that. The finance committees sit down with the administrator and they talk about the criteria for this upcoming budget, what it should be.
Okay, so okay. So, while you were talking earlier,
Yep.
look, when he just comes in and talks about what the overlay is, what I think he was trying to do was for some newer people, that hasn't really done, he wanted to explain different terms so they understood them. But that doesn't mean we cannot bring up or talk about, okay, are we gonna do 1% under, are we gonna do level funding, what is your guidelines going into the budget season? There's no reason why we can't talk to them about that at all. In fact, I think we should.
Yep.
So I think that he was just trying to do a favor, to just kind of educate some people on, because there seemed to be a lot of confusion on what different accounts were, and what they're for, and what they're really for, and then why you can use them, and this type of stuff. I know at the last 2 town meetings, I really feel people left those meetings not knowing what they voted for. And that's the confusion of, we all thought at the first special town meeting that we were gonna vote on a budget or for an amount for the school, and it got changed before we even opened it. I still don't know how that happened. So I think it's important that we understand the guidelines that the, town administrator is gonna give to his department heads. And I'm sure he'll watch this. We'll ask him that when we do this, mini retreat type thing, that we talk about that. It's like, okay, we're gonna be much more involved in,
Well, I brought this up the last time, about the Templeton Advisory Committee roles and recommendations. This was done by Paul Grubb. Let me read the last line. TAC recommends better definition of warrant articles to include loan duration.
okay?
That was our recommendation, and this committee has made a number of attempts to come to the selectmen, make some suggestions and recommendations, and they haven't necessarily been implemented.
Okay, so, well, they're suggestions, so they don't have to implement them. I will say this, we're moving forward. I thought that they were more receptive to us this past year. I believe with Jeff, and with Jeff and Mike on the board, but also Diane and Julie and Terry, I don't think that there's gonna be an issue of them, listening to us if we make suggestions. If we make a suggestion that we're all really for and they don't choose not to take it, we'll bring that up on the town meeting floor,
Okay,
okay?
yep.
So,
And the reason this was brought up is that the warrant article, this shows you how long I've been around. The warrant article originally for the police station, okay? You gotta smile there, because he knows where I'm going here.
Oh, I was just bumping out that last 10% in my head,
Yep.
just from the other day, so yeah, I'm gonna relieve myself from it. Excuse me.
And what happened was, the warrant article was for a debt exclusion.
right,
Okay? There was a summary, not in the warrant article itself, that said it would be for 2 years.
right, I recall that.
How many years is the debt exclusion for the police station? Anybody wanna raise their hand and say, I know, I don't know?
It's 30 now.
Yeah, it's 30 years.
Well, it changed, the number also doubled. So what they thought to make it, okay, right or wrong, and what they thought to make it more
When they
palatable.
But when they went back for the second bite of the apple, so to speak, to get more money, that should have been spelled out. It was an increase in the debt exclusion, and it would be for X amount of years. That was-
But that's how, I believe they did state that, because that's how I knew.
It wasn't
when
in the
they-
warrant article,
It may
in
not
the
have been in the
motion.
warrant article, but it was discussed on
It-
the floor.
It doesn't make any difference how much you discuss on the floor. If it's not in the warrant article written, it can end up changing.
So
And that's
what
what
you're
happened.
saying is you want people to know, so first of all, they can't necessarily say it's gonna mean, they can only give you a range of $2 million over 30 years is gonna increase your taxes by 86 cents a thousand. Whatever the number is,
Yeah.
there is a calculator you can use to kinda get you in the ballpark.
Yes.
Okay, so I would agree that if we are gonna go ask the town for, essentially, hey, we wanna borrow money for 30 years, they should know that how much it is, for the length of time it's gonna be, and what that means for their taxes.
Yes.
That should absolutely
Yep.
be in the warrant article.
And I think when you if you're gonna end up having in the meeting and you're gonna bring up the budget along with him telling you what some of the stuff is, we actually need, in addition to that, we need to take and talk about what? The debt schedule.
Right, and I think they're working
And
on that.
I mean, I saw a thing that said the debt was in the budget. I'm sorry,
I
that's
know what
bullshit.
I know what
There
you
was
want.
numbers there, but it didn't show when we were
I know-
going to
I
pay
know, I know,
some
no,
of the
no,
stuff off.
I know
and
what you
everything
want.
else.
You wanted basically that sheet they gave us last year. You want that updated with the actual debt, with the middle school coming off and that type. I know what you want. I believe Carter knows what you want. It's just their priority of producing that document.
Isn't that
is
something
not
that we're
time.
supposed to have as a town, that document, our debt?
I don't know if it's required. I think it's a good thing. The people know the information is available, so as a townsperson, you can come in and say, what do we owe? As a townsperson. But
If I
like that
know-
document.
Yeah, but if
like
I
that
know it's a
document.
townsperson, and I'm gonna put myself in townsperson position rather than on a committee. If I know that we have a certain amount of debt, and it's strung out, and I can see that on a document, and, okay, this year here, we can't take on any more debt, because we're up to our eyeballs. In 2 years, we have this one and this one coming off. So we can end up doing something like taking on some more debt.
Right, I don't disagree with
That's
that.
prudent. I mean,
Sure it is.
in my
absolutely.
household, that's how I end up doing it. If I don't wanna end up more debt, I don't take it on until I'm at the point where I have paid off something.
No, I fully agree. So we'll talk to Carter. So before that meeting,
Yep.
what I will do is I'll send everybody an email asking what topics do you wanna discuss. We'll end up calling it a budget workshop, with the TA.
You notice I always have, I already had that, this is a thing that I brought back.
Okay. Whatever, I mean, you know, you can email me anytime. I check my email more than once daily. So, right now I'd like to target, let me bring a calendar up here. Looks like the 2nd of, oh, I'm sorry, the 3rd of October. I'd like to target that date for the workshop. If you guys wanna, if you wanna, vote on that, at the next meeting, I'll make sure it's on the agenda to set that. I'll make sure Carter's available.
You have to, when you put out the minute meetings, I mean, the agenda,
Yeah.
you should call it out to make sure it is as a workshop, not
Yes.
as a.
Yeah, I know,
Okay,
yeah.
just-
Yeah, because then it doesn't have, it's not taped.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it's taped.
Thought we did one last year, it wasn't taped. Okay, doesn't matter. It'll be a workshop.
Yes.
The only issue, what we possibly may do is have a brief meeting to talk about the, joint town meeting vote again, which is gonna be the 25th. So we might just talk about that, the results of what's happened, where we're going forward, and then we'll go into the workshop. We can do both.
Okay, we'll talk about the
Well,
joint.
the joint, which will be
director,
on,
yeah.
right.
I,
I already think I know what's
you're
gonna.
going on to old businesses?
Let me get to my agenda. I keep meaning to print this. Okay, anything else about the workshop with the TA?
Oh, have we brought up everything?
And I'd also like Adam to be there because I'd like to kinda understand some of his philosophies, going forward, if he's gonna be our town administrator, so.
When does that switch take place?
My understanding is the 1st of October, or sometime in October, I don't know if the 1st is he becomes the assistant town administrator after he's been here a year. And then 1 year from that point, if the Board of Selectmen so choose to offer him a contract, he'll become the town administrator.
Gotcha.
Okay, so no more old business?
Yes. Under old business, I think that'd probably be appropriate time to bring it up, is there is another, warrant article for the school.
Yeah.
And I'm bringing this up because we already took a vote
Yeah.
on the 19,987,000 plus change.
Yep.
I'm bringing it up because I wanna take it into, either we reiterate that
Right, so.
and have another vote, or we hold on to the vote that we already have.
I think that, at the next meeting on the 19th, that you should, discuss it and then come up with an advisory committee position.
You need to, since you're not gonna be here, you need to relay that to your vice.
I will.
I'm just bringing that up.
Yep.
I don't wanna let that slip through.
No,
the-
no, no, I
cracks.
mean, no, I think
I'll
that,
put it in the notes.
yeah,
Leave.
yeah.
Put,
that-
yeah, put that in the
Yeah,
minutes. That's
that we,
that's a good one.
that we should, because people may say, okay, change my mind. I mean, I wish I knew there was what a good answer was, because I don't like the fact that the police department is less an officer. I don't like the fact that our firefighters and our EMTs have taken big pay cuts because of this. I think that there are things the town could do to rectify that, so they don't lose the money.
Yeah.
Is there any option to almost have like a subcommittee get together with like members
Well,
of the
I think
advisory
that-
committee,
I
the board of
think
selectmen
one-
and the school
yeah, I
committee to
think
try
that's
to
the
hammer out a
plan.
deal?
No, I don't think that's.
No?
I think the sides have,
Well, see, my,
they've taken their sides. I believe that when they went to the 19.5 number, that was the Board of Selectmen was offering their, hey, try to meet us halfway.
Yeah,
So
there's no hope of meeting in the middle anywhere.
well,
I guess whenever you get people in a room, there's hope, but from what I've seen, I believe that the school committee is steadfast, that I don't think they're disregarding town finances or anything. I truly believe that this is the number they believe they need to operate the schools in town.
well, I'm gonna differ that with that.
Okay.
And the reason I differ that, and it's, I know you're gonna say, well, you're not the expert on the school budget. Do you know that within the school budget, how many, administrative assistants they have? Anybody?
No.
Do you care?
Yeah, they run like a business. I care. But can I change it, how they run their
No,
business?
no, I'm just saying.
How many do they
I'm-
have?
I think there's 5 or 6 of them.
Okay.
They would rather cut a teacher than cut back on administrators.
One
And
person.
Administrative assistants.
Administrators and assistants.
Without knowing what they all do? Because I can tell you that a lot of, like, each school has, the principal has an administrative assistant that they need. They do a lot more, it's just not like they're typing letters and stuff like that, okay?
I was gonna say, not to get into this, but I was gonna say, just happened, I think Will might be referring to is that there's, I think 5 coordinators, with the school, and the 5 coordinators between them have 4.5 administrative
Right.
assistants.
Okay.
So I think that's what he's referring to.
Ah,
I mean, and I
without-
don't know what they do. with
Right,
this,
so
but-
without knowing what everybody does, I mean, if we ever got to the point where they wanted our help, I would wanna know what each person does. But you sort of pay, you pay the superintendent to kinda suggest the cuts to the school committee if they have to make cuts. I mean,
Well, he's like any other management for business. Where does business always cut?
and here's the
It's
big difference.
never at the top.
Here's the big difference, though. He's a not-for-profit. So he doesn't run it like a normal business. Okay?
But isn't it though?
Well, but I
The
was gonna
bigger
say,
your
I,
administration is,
on that one,
the
I'll
bigger
differ
the
with you.
business is. It is run just like a business. whether they're in the business of educating, but they are all making salary, they all make money, it's run like a business.
They talk about it as
Don't
income.
Generate income.
They
They
do,
talk
from
about the-
Medicaid and from the state and us.
But that's different.
Where
That
their
is
income
not-
comes from.
They don't really sell a product. Yes, right, there are different sources of income.
Right.
Like they moved somebody.
Yes, they have
to be
a
full-time-
product. The product is an educated kid.
Yes.
But like for Medicaid, you know, and you look at the past year since Dr. Cassavant took over. They've doubled, almost tripled the Medicaid income.
Mm-hmm.
Because they said, hey, why aren't we taking advantage of this? To the point now that they're gonna have a person that part of their job is going to be to make sure all the Medicaid stuff is billed and in there.
But as
Yeah,
a
but
business
no, I
that
mean-
works for two towns, that's the job of the business, to educate children of two towns. In my opinion, it's grown bigger than the two towns can, one, afford, and two, what our enrollment is has for the towns.
And I would agree with that, but that's a different argument than whether it's business or not.
But I'll say for your lack of business idea, you're a person that, the Medicaid, yeah, they got Medicaid that pays for, half the person to come in to file the Medicaid.
Right.
That's a straight business mentality.
Well, I agree, okay, so we're,
The idea of using school choice to pay for a kindergarten student.
That is a
that's
business
business
decision.
decision.
Yes.
And that was
Yes.
stated at the last committee meeting.
yes, so are they technically, could you say they run like a business? Okay, I'll.
I'm sorry,
I'll
Tony, but-
capitulate to that, yeah, maybe they are. But they're not a true business where they
Yeah.
don't generate a product or
Well,
revenue.
I will agree
The
that they are
real
not a
amount.
business. They are not. They are a liability for the town.
Yes, but run like a business,
Yep.
because we don't supersede
Well, I
them
would
in
never
any
say they're a
way.
liability for the town, I mean,
I
you're.
would, all day.
That's okay, I mean,
I understand,
I respect your opinion,
I
but-
understand and I get it, but I
I
don't.
don't think he means it
I
in a
don't-
negative way. It's a liability
Right.
that we have to pay out.
Yes.
Financial.
Financial.
Financial, 'cause
Oh,
I'm
okay.
not talking about, I'm not bringing in the kids, I'm not bringing in the feelings and emotions,
No,
I'm
you're
here
right,
about money.
You're right, there is a cost of having a school system.
Absolutely is.
And I believe the fact that we have a regional school system up until the last few years worked pretty well. But it's not working anymore. Now, if you looked at the last Board of Selectmen meeting, I came and I asked them, and I wanted it on the record, and that's why I came, I want them to visit the Narragansett Regional School District. I really don't know if closing, if we took away, if we just paid for our school and they paid for theirs, what the net sum game would be, if any.
Well, and I agree with you 100%. I'm not saying we should do this, we shouldn't do that. But we should know where the money's going, and if we're spending more to do what we're doing now than we need to, or if we can do it more efficiently for Templeton taxpayers by doing it differently.
Yes.
By just educating
Oh, by the way,
Templeton
there is
students, or whatever
there is a DOR-DLS document on cost analysis. It doesn't get into the detail maybe that for, say, the school per se, but it says you should do a cost analysis on any project, and this is a project when you start going and breaking it up or
Yeah.
combining
Do it
them.
all the time.
Yeah, I mean.
It should be done, because it's a broken system. The way it stands
So
today,
I
it's
believe Dr. Cassavant knows for this coming year, the way he does the budget has to be a complete overhaul. And he told Bob and I that in a meeting,
Yeah.
that he cannot continue to do it the way
But-
he did it.
Templeton needs to take a look at if staying with the regional district is the most cost-effective thing to do, or doing municipal. There should be a cost analysis on that, to see what it would cost us
Yeah,
as
that
a
would take-
town to
that
do
would take
either or.
years, right, well, so.
But if you start now, then are you
Yeah.
kicking the can down the road, or are you planning for something?
Excellent example of that is a small community, not too far from here, is Petersham. Petersham, their elementary school is a town school. They pick up all the costs for that. And granted, it's small,
Doesn't matter.
but I mean, you have to take and do the analysis to figure out if it's worthwhile one way or the other.
That's the thing.
And I think that
And that's sort of what I'm advocating
Yeah.
here,
Yeah.
that,
But are you talking about like the school itself or the building? Cause Peterson falls under the
No.
Orange School District.
right.
For
but
their middle and high school. And they
But then-
pay.
School is in the town.
With the school in the town is maintained, the building as well as administration and all that.
So they have
Saying it's
elementary municipal, and
So-
then they use their middle and
so
high
honestly,
school
this-
as
this
part
is
of a
something
regional.
that the
I get
board-
that, but I
the-
remember like cause when we had the pre-town meeting and Margaret Hughes was here and we talked about building costs. And if I recall what she said correctly, she said that as far as the building goes, like in the regional agreement, the district would pay only up to 5,000 and then it belongs to the town. Like, so if there's,
That's in
right,
the
is that-
agreement,
That's in
yes.
the agreement.
And
But
that's
the
all- that's outdated.
administration is paid for by the district.
Yeah.
Which
Okay.
it wouldn't be if, you know, it was a town
If
issue,
it was a
you'd need your
town,
own.
so
Right.
each town would
That's
have
what
their
they were
own
saying.
Yeah.
administration.
That's what they were saying to Phillips in regard to that, if they broke off from the Narragansett Regional School System, they'd need to hire a superintendent, they'd need to hire
right,
this,
I
they'd
don't,
need to hire that.
honestly, I don't
So you
think
can have
that it's
municipal
benefit,
elementaries
and
and
they
stuff.
have to do what's right for them as a town. I don't think it benefits them by breaking off from the district. I think that relooking at the regional agreement and who pays for what is really a prudent thing.
But is that gonna fix the problem if our
I don't know.
regional district is growing bigger than what our towns they provide services to is?
I don't know.
Well, the thing that gets me is, the school choice, I'm not gonna talk about that. That's a different elephant.
Yeah.
What's happening in this community, as well as other communities locally here, is two things. The aging population in this community is doing this. The school population, and I'm talking about in Templeton,
Yeah.
not school choice, is doing this. We ended up,
It is,
Not really,
We've
not that
been the
much though.
same.
it is.
we is, well,
If you look at it over the last 5 years, it's dropped 100 and something kids.
Yeah.
But you look at the different grades, it's cyclical, really.
Mark Barrio ended up presenting that to this committee, and he went out and saw that information, he didn't create it.
Okay.
From another agency that actually showed different, this was
Okay.
state agency,
I-
that showed that the population for the school going down, and you can see that in the graphs that the school presents. Because you see the school here, and then they say school choice, and this
Yep,
is
no,
your
you're right.
population. I can't,
I guess really what you have to look at is a foundation enrollment.
Yep.
That's what you have to look at. Are those numbers going down? I'd have to get the.
people
data.
aren't having as many kids.
You can afford them.
Right.
That's beside the they can't afford them even when they get into school.
And another problem that we have is, in a town like this that has very little tax base other than the people,
Yep.
costs keep going up, they're gonna keep going up, and your revenue coming in is not keeping pace.
Yep.
And that's really something that as a town, we've gotta figure out.
Well, you can't, again, I go back to what some of our politicians did on the federal government. You can't keep growing government. And believe it or not, I don't care how you wanna take it, end up saying it, we've been growing government the last couple of years. We've been putting new people on in some of these departments. And some of them, we haven't filled those positions for a lot of reasons. But we filled assistants the accountant, when I first came on to this committee, was part-time, 1 day a week. And the gentleman, he had the software, and that's a different story as to why we got to where we are. And he had a data interest person, and he was getting paid for 1 day a week. When that changed, our when we hired an accountant, was part-time. Well, what happened? What happened was that when we changed that software over for proprietary to VIII, as you know, software changes don't go well.
No.
Even another community, I think it's Ashburnham, that went from Munis, which is Cadillac,
Yeah.
the Vadar, they got this.
I was just gonna say,
They got big problems.
I just read that, but for them to go back to
Well-
Munis is gonna cost them $1 million.
Right, and
Yeah, 800 grand or something
Yeah,
like
7
that,
or
yeah.
8.
Yeah, and we,
Round it up.
and by the way, we ran into that problem when we changed from cities and towns to Vadar. It was just a mess. That's what got us into the problem of all these years of not getting audits, because we didn't have clean books. And,
There's always growing pains when you change software
Right.
products.
but what was advocated then was by Bob Markle was, I'm gonna go from a part-time accountant to a full-time accountant to clean this up. And he actually said, then we can go back and cut the hours later. Have we done that? No. We've got a full-time accountant, we've given raises to, and we've got an assistant accountant.
But I don't know what they do all day. Maybe there's a level of effort that they need to be there. I mean, I don't come in here and stand over their shoulders, are you working, are you working? I mean, that's what we have these people in here for, and that's what we
I
have the Board
understand
of
that,
Selectmen.
I'm just bringing up how we have grown here.
Yeah.
We went from a part-time person to a full-time person with an assistant. Whether or not it's needed or what, that's when you should have done a cost analysis.
I was gonna say, I think what this brings us back to, we're going around in circles a little bit here, but this brings us back to the point earlier. You can't fix something, or you don't know if something's working well until you look at it. You know, and you gotta do that, and I don't think we do that enough in this town.
We don't do a good job of
I
it.
don't think we actually look at it from, let's say, an unconcerned perspective.
Yep.
You know, somebody who's not in the mix. But going back to another point, Tony, and this was a good point, thank you, and I'm not trying to
Yeah.
bang, bang, bang. I just think a lot of people are in the same boat. In 2009, the foundation enrollment, in Narragansett Regional was 1,660 kids. The graph is right here.
Yep, it's gone down.
And it goes from 1660 down to 1295. You know, our budget gone the other way at about the same, you know, point. You know, it's concerning to me.
Yep.
You know, but I'm not gonna go into the whole thing. I just wanted to, you know, the people know that our Templeton enrollment is down 25% since 2009.
Yep.
Um,
And this, by the way, the salaries for the teacher has gone up substantially.
Really?
Couple of years ago,
salaries, yeah.
when Ruth was here, the average salary for a teacher was almost $70,000 a year. And that was comparable, and I approached her and I says, you're not having any problems getting any teachers to come to this district, are you?
You know,
No.
Do you understand how when teachers come in, how their salary's determined?
Yes,
How?
Excuse me.
bachelor's, master's,
Well, they
Right.
have to have a master's, right?
yep.
They have to at least have a bachelor's, they have to be DESI certified. If
Yep.
they have a master's, they're on a different scale.
That's right.
And if you come from one town district, say you're a bachelor's step 4, you have to come over as a step 4. So they use a step system also. So now, I know for some of the recent hires, they're trying to get people, you get less experienced people, because you have to pay them less.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay? If you don't, okay, so first of all, they're a collectively bargained union.
Yep.
And so that's how their salaries are set. And, huh?
I just said problem one.
Well,
Yeah,
but truthfully, they deserve raises. I mean,
absolutely.
everybody does. There's,
Yeah.
I don't want to be, I'm not pointing
Everyone
fingers at
deserves raises.
anybody, okay? If you don't give them raises, you're gonna lose a lot of really good teachers, and they're gonna go to other school systems because they can make $10,000 a year more. And when you're only making, and the 70,000, I don't know if that's correct. If you're only making $45,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year, you add $10,000 to that, and I know that sounds a lot, like a lot of money, and it is, but, I mean,
70,000
you
is
get what you paid for.
what the state has for Narragansett
Is it?
as the average.
Yeah, I was gonna
Do
say,
you-
I
you
came
know-
in at like
do
68
you know what,
change.
They don't break
how-
it down more
no,
than
but
that.
how, what year that data was from?
2019.
Okay.
Or
Because,
18,
because, you know, if you
whatever the
lose a
name-
really experienced teacher that's been there for 30 years, and you bring in someone with only a little small experience, that kinda
But I was
mashes the
gonna say,
numbers.
So,
you
yeah,
know,
but
all
sometimes
these
there's
things-
a benefit in doing that, and I say that, and I, with tongue in cheek here. A teacher that has been in the system for 19 years may be out of step with the most local stuff, and bringing in somebody new, lack of experience. Look, my
no.
wife's niece was teaching, English down in Virginia, and I forget what they call it. It was like college level or whatever. There's a
AP?
name.
AP?
Yeah,
College prep,
yep.
AP.
AP. And she was she'd double her salary by coming here. But her family is in Virginia, so I mean,
Okay,
that's,
okay.
and this is a
But,
big
you
community.
know,
State by
I mean,
state.
debating salaries,
I don't-
you know,
that
I don't
doesn't-
really
I know
care
what it
about
is.
individual salaries. I care about process, and I care about, you know, the way it's broken down. But I also, I dislike things that go on when people say, you know, well, we underpay. Well, our positions are filled, you know, the certain ones. Yeah, in some areas, we're definitely underpaid. We're underpaying some of the people, just like every business. If you started here at 20 years old, you're probably underpaid if you've been here 10 years.
See,
Because you're getting raised from the same place. You're
Yeah,
not
I would agree
moving
with
up in market mentality.
You know-
Excuse me, Will, for one
yeah,
second.
yeah, go ahead.
You know, and that is something that seems to be an internal problem that we have, you know, a lot of complaining about wages and a lot of, let's say, acceptance of that fact, even though the data, if you look at local municipalities surrounding us, not 50 miles away, but surrounding us, we're above, equal to, or barely below.
Yep.
And if we're barely below the requirements is such, like you say with accounting, or, you know, the treasurer's office, well, there can be different job descriptions of an
Right.
accountant. They can
Yep.
have payroll, they can not have payroll. Treasurer can have this, not have that, and so on. And so that accounts for some of the variations. But I think, you know, it's that look that we need to do. We need to do the look, you know, because to see that we're getting that value for the taxpayer, that we're not just, oh yeah, we're paying all average wages and getting all 60% work, great. No,
But you know, in truth, it's not just the school system. Our police department are underpaid, our fire department's underpaid. Everybody is underpaid in this town.
Depends on
including
what
me,
you
but,
gauge
that's
against.
just my opinion. And that's just what their opinion,
And that's,
in
and
most
that, right,
cases.
and that's my opinion. I think that,
Right, but in their case, I would say that's absolutely wrong, cause they're all employed.
Yep.
So that's market wages,
Yep.
period. Market wages, you hire people, people come in for a job, market wages.
they don't have to accept the position, you're correct.
See, let me just go on to one other thing is on school choice. You talked about this yesterday, about the 270 students coming in.
243.
Well,
I don't know
whatever,
I don't know what
73 now.
is it 273?
That's what I was told last time.
whatever the number.
Yeah, that might,
30 up.
My question is this,
that, they were gonna let everybody know.
my question is this. How many are we school choicing out and why?
I think it's
Why?
like 173.
140 something, how many?
173 last
There's
time.
a
No,
reason
no, it's
why those
140.
people are leaving this school system if it's so good.
It's about 138
Will,
going out.
okay,
Because there's something being offered somewhere else that they're not getting here.
It could very well be, and just
Curriculum,
like the people
probably.
coming in, if you look at Narragansett's reviews and so forth, Narragansett gets great reviews on sports and all that thing. So you're gonna get a lot of people coming here school choiced in, I think, from sports.
I think people school
I don't
choice,
know.
some people wanna send their kids to Catholic school, or they want them, you know, Monty Tech, I don't think, does that count in the school choice number? I think it must. Why
does.
people school choice is up to them. I mean, if you had 100 families school choicing their kids,
Yep.
I bet you'd have 100 different reasons.
Let me ask you this.
Right.
What's the call for Mandarin Chinese in this country?
Probably getting bigger by the minute.
Not really.
But I don't understand.
Mandarin is not necessarily the prominent one.
Okay, what's your point? Well, I don't understand the
They
point.
were
of Mandarin.
teaching, they had a teacher teaching Mandarin Chinese a couple of years ago. How many students did they have?
I don't know, how many?
Less than a half a dozen.
Okay, so, and then, do they teach Mandarin Chinese now? No, because their interest wasn't there, so they made the move.
But they should have known.
But I mean, you know, it's.
Maybe at the time when they brought, I don't know, maybe at the time when they started teaching it, you know, a bunch of kids did it, thought it was a cool thing, and then just for whatever reason, cause from what I hear, it's hard to learn, they chose not to
It
do
is.
it. I don't know, Will.
No, I think, I agree with Tony. I think people choose to go to different districts for a variety of reasons. You wouldn't be able to nail it down to just one. And I know the school, Narragansett sent home surveys to people who do school choice their children to ask why. And they discussed it at one of the school committee meetings. I
Maybe
remember
somebody
watching
moved
it,
from
and-
Gardner to Templeton, yet their kids had been going to Gardner schools for 4 or 5 years, and they wanted to stay with their friends. Just so they school choice them there.
Yeah, I mean, I think school choice is great, to that zero sum. That's
Right.
my thing.
Right
Right,
there.
and I think, yeah, I do think that we do have too many school choice, but again, I don't feel like I'm really qualified to say, you know, because it's not guaranteed. I really believe school choice, you should have that zero sum. Have as many coming in as you have you going out to level the budget. Because, and Bob, you made this point very well, that anything above that zero sum, in this case, the towns of Templeton and Phillipston are kind of paying for the education of those
Yeah,
kids.
exactly.
So maybe, you know, school choice, you know, the state should maybe reimburse more. I mean, you
An
want
updated
the
formula.
zero sum, this way you have as many going out. but-
There's a bill, they can raise that from 5 to 6, but that's.
Wow,
That's
that's
still
that's-
not
that's
enough.
pennies.
Yeah,
Peanuts.
that's-
That's like from 20 to 30.
like, it's
Yeah.
like, I think the regional reimbursement, they went from what, 79, 80% to 81 or 82%?
Yeah.
Big deal.
You know, the one thing I would,
Supposed
wi-
Yeah.
the one thing I
Yeah, so
wish
yeah.
is that the school committee and the board of selectmen would have this type of discussion that we're having now. This is an open discussion as far as I'm concerned, and to take and get out ideas and look at the issues. We may not necessarily come out with a solution, but by talking about it, at least it brings it out in the open, and maybe we can end up driving something or having people's questions.
So I think this year for the school budget, and unfortunately, they'll have to have their budget in before the year is done. You have an outlier of, we have a new school. What are the real costs of the schools? I don't think they know. Like, you know, it was brought up at the school committee, how much is it gonna cost to heat the building? Don't know, and honestly, 1 year's not really gonna tell you. You need to go through 2 or 3, 4, 5 winters here in New England, cause as we all know, you can have a really cold winter, you can have a mild winter, you can have a ton of snow, less snow, whatever. So you need something, you need those data points. So, alright,
Hell, fuel oil can go from $2.50 to $4.
exactly,
Yep.
exactly.
3 months, yeah.
Right.
well,
Yeah,
Alright, any other old business?
put a sawdust boiler in.
Any other old business, Will?
No, I just,
Debbie?
No,
No? Any new business?
no,
No,
I don't.
I don't have any, I don't think I have any.
I'm like, nope.
Oh, that's right. Okay,
oh, on the new business, I want to just bring up one thing.
okay,
I don't know if it was really made clear. I haven't done this, but I would recommend that people do this. I asked about the back to the town clerk. You used to get the cards with your name and how long you were on.
Oh, yeah.
She gave the thing, it's recommended that you go in, because now they're taking pictures I take your
Oh, I
pictures.
think we have to do that.
Yeah. Well, no, we don't have to. It's, they haven't,
Security thing, yeah, I read some about that
No,
before.
I haven't seen anything.
I haven't been sent any direction to pass out to the board, but I do believe that is coming.
Okay.
They should have come out and done that.
Well, if that's the case, then they need to send us an email saying,
Oh, by
I
the
need
way,
everybody
this has
to do
been,
this.
this has been in place for almost 6 months to a year, that they were talking about
Okay.
pictures.
okay.
So I recommend that you just go
So they're
and do
not
that.
too stressed about it, cause they haven't come after us.
No, Bob and I are on the
They
website,
know who
so
Yeah,
You are?
alright.
we're not.
They know who you are.
I sent
Well-
Holly the email yesterday.
I figured, that's why I was letting you know, I checked it
Do you
before
want
I
me to
came.
email Carol and see if she needs us to come in?
You can if you want.
Alright.
Oh, you wanna talk about one other thing?
I don't
That
know,
you're
what is it,
looking at?
Will?
Depending on what it is. Oh,
You're already,
hold
you're already
on.
clicking on it.
Hold on,
That's probably under old business,
what's that?
the website.
What about it?
I have some inputs on that if you give me some latitude on this.
May I make a statement on that, just as an issue?
Yep.
It might be better to wait for Lee to be here, because he's
Yeah,
the
he's
one.
No,
working
no,
on it.
Oh.
this is just straightforward.
Okay,
There
Okay.
was some
Under
discussion
old business?
on what should go on there, and I'm not disagreeing with some of the stuff that's on there. It was like, well, we don't have access to that. I do.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
so.
And we
so-
also have
so-
an old email
Okay,
account.
So if there's stuff that
The
you want to be
the
on there,
BVA,
pass
got
it to
ton-
Lee.
I got
Pass
tons of
it-
stuff.
Anything that you want.
I
I think we
referenced that today,
decided
too.
after a certain year it was gonna go into archives or whatever, but, Lee kinda sent how, he's starting to work on the,
yes, I saw that.
thing, so, we even talked about that, there is data that we may not have, but if you have it and you wanna provide it, we'll certainly look at getting it on.
yeah,
If
I was
it's
gonna say,
if it's relevant to what we do, then
I
absolutely.
remember saying that if there was anything we're missing, that,
Yeah.
there'd be a couple people
There
that
might be
probably have it.
meeting minutes from 2015 or whatever that, I mean, we know we have the meeting minutes from the last 2 years, but beyond that,
Most of it is up on the website.
right, so he's gonna data mine as much as he can and.
Yep.
Alright. No more new business?
No more new business.
Next meeting will be the 19th of October,
September?
September,
September.
thank you. Getting ahead of myself?
The months
rush
fly,
it.
the-
You want
the
all
months
the
fly
time.
fast enough.
Being efficient,
He
Tony,
wants
you're
to
being
get by
efficient.
that, just wants to slide by that district meeting.
And anybody else have any comments? And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn,
So moved.
Second.
and we are adjourned.
No, you're not